Yo, what's up, everybody? Off-season content begins right now. It is Monday, January 6th. Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Jamie Eisenberg. I believe Heath is taking a nice little post-football vacation for this week, but we're all here. You guys, all right, give me the first-round matchup you're looking forward to the most.
Lions-Rams. Or, I'm sorry, Vikings-Rams. Sorry, Thomas. I didn't mean to give you some.
Bucks Commanders.
Man, the NFC ones are so much better than the AFC ones on paper, aren't they?
I do think that there's like percentage points of an upset in every single game in the AFC. Like even the Bills hosting the Broncos, you can't say that that's one that the Bills are just going to absolutely wipe the Broncos off the map in. I think Denver gives them a game. I think the Steelers give the Ravens a game. And yes, I even think the Texans will give the Chargers a game.
I think the Chargers win easy. I think the Ravens win easy. I'm looking forward to, based on just how the first game went, the Packers-Eagles game too. Like that should be fun.
Yeah.
Who's quarterbacking the Eagles?
I would hope it's Jalen Hurts.
I would hope so too, but I mean, something's up.
Well, you know, he's in the concussion protocol, so hopefully he's out. But yeah, it's obviously a big deal. Eagles are 5.5-point favorites. Bucks are 3-point favorites over the Commanders. That's the one I just have no idea who I think is going to win that game. Vikings, Rams. I actually feel pretty decent about the Vikings, even though they coming off such a terrible performance. But they're 2-point favorites on the road. Bills are 9-point favorites over the Broncos. Ravens 9.5-point favorites over the Steelers. Wouldn't be nice for the Steelers to get their act together and stick it to their arch rival. And the Texans and Chargers are 3-point favorites on the road. All right, so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do our top 12 for 2025. We're going to do fantasy superlatives, MVP, biggest bust, rookie of the year, and more. And we're going to go through the coaching news, the hirings and firings, the Tyreek Hill news. I know a lot of you want to talk about like playoff challenges and stuff like that. So I'm just gonna read this one email. We'll do that later this week. But email of the day from Gunner. Playing in a postseason league for the first time, could you discuss some postseason rankings? And a lot of these leagues, they're all different, right? Like some of them you can only use a player once, so it doesn't matter how far his team advances. But some of these leagues, you have to try to predict the outcomes of the games and see which players are going to be playing the most games. So who are some of your favorite postseason players? Have you guys thought about it at all?
So I'm writing. I do it every year. I do playoff rankings for the site. So I'm writing them today. I usually just do it based off of who I think is going to play the longest. Last the longest in the postseason. I think the thing that you have to sort of look at is the rules, because there are some rules where you can still start a player who is not playing in the wild card round. For example, if you want to play any Chiefs thinking they're going to make a Super Bowl run, or the Lions if you think they're going to make a Super Bowl run. And there are some, I don't know if the NFL still has their playoff challenge or not, I forget, but NFL.com, they used to do it or they still might, where you get double points for every round that they advance. So you can either play a player who was on a bye and still get double points if they advance, but you're just taking zeros in the first round. So every league has different scoring rules. I play in about 4 or 5 of them. And so, like you said, Adam, there are some that have use them once and they're done. There are some that have, again, they carry over throughout as long as they're still alive. So just check the rules. That's the biggest thing. So, the thing that I always do when I write the story is I map out the playoffs, how I think it's going to go. And that's how I choose the players based on the rankings.
Would you be interested to know what the Super Bowl odds are for every team that remains?
Yeah, sure.
So this is according to BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Lions plus 280. They're the favorites. Chiefs plus 350. And then the Ravens and Bills are tied at plus 600. Those are the top 4. So right off the bat, and this is pretty basic, but you would expect that players on those 4 teams to be very popular in the playoff challenge leagues. Right behind the Ravens and the Bills, the Eagles are plus 700. And then after Philadelphia, there's a huge drop-off. Vikings, 1,600. Packers, 1,800. Then another huge drop-off. All these teams are 30-1 or higher. Bucks, Chargers, Rams, Commanders, Broncos, Texans. The highest odds are the Steelers, 100-1. So maybe stay away from those Steelers players in your playoff challenge leagues. That's super.
The way that you win these things is when a player or players from wild card teams that just make runs.
Okay. So the good news is that's all but 2 teams. So if there was a team that you thought could make a run, who would it be?
Well, I mean, the Bills obviously that's not like making a run. They're the 2 seed.
No, but they're at least going to play.
Well, let me rephrase. The
Yeah, the
surprise
Ravens-
team that you think is going to make a run that you get players from that not everybody else believes in. So, like if you
Right,
think
so
the
that's
Chargers, for example, can get to the Super Bowl, and you take Justin Herbert and Lad McConkey and some sort of combination of any Chargers players, or if you think, for example, the Packers are going to get there because they're the 7th seed, that's how you win these things.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the Vikings. The Vikings were a game away from being the 1 seed. I know they had a horrible game.
But the point would be is they're going to be popular because they
so?
were 1 game away. Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't know.
I don't know. According to what I just spewed off,
but again, you're thinking about the NFL odds. It's like winning a DFS tournament. It's the people that are going to take Justin Jefferson because he's great and hope that they win 2 games. And if they win, if they play 4, then you're in such great shape.
All right. Well, who do you guys think is going to go to the Super Bowl? Because I think the Chiefs are the best team. I just think they have a much tougher road than going through the NFC with the Bills and the Ravens looming.
Well, the Bills and the Ravens have the toughest path because they have to play each other potentially and then play the Chiefs. So the Chiefs only have to play one of them.
The Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, what are we doing here?
It would be interesting to see if maybe Kelsey and Swift broke up, how that would go beforehand.
Why would you say that?
No, if. I mean, I had Bills Lions. I had Bills Lions preseason. I don't want to deviate from what I said, but yeah, it's hard to bet against the Chiefs because again, their path is so much easier. I think for the NFC, I mean, it's not easy in the NFC.
No,
I mean the Eagles to me are, if Jalen Hurts is healthy, the Eagles are the best team.
I agree.
But I'm going to assume he's going to play. I would pick the Eagles. I'm not going to because I don't want to hate myself, but I would pick the Eagles if I were completely unbiased.
Well, right. You say that as a Giants fan. It's not because of any other reason. I wonder if that makes Hurts like a good value pick in these things because there might be a couple people in your playoff league that's going to say, oh, I don't know if I can take this guy. He might not play. But hopefully he does. And if he does, that first matchup against Green Bay, I don't hate it. And then who are the, you think about the teams that they might play.
But they could definitely lose to Green Bay. I mean, I'm not counting that out at all.
They could, but I think their defense will show up, and I think that they can run on Green Bay.
It's a tough
and Green Bay's kind of limping into the game.
Yeah.
And then they would play either the Rams or the Bucks in the second round potentially.
It
depends. For me.
They could play. Yeah, they could play They could play any team except the Commanders if they win. If the Commanders win, well, right, and the Lions. The Lions would get the lowest remaining seed, which would be either the Packers or the Commanders. So the Eagles could face the Vikings, the Rams, or the Bucks in the second round, or they could lose. I don't love that they're facing Green Bay. I mean, remember what Green Bay did last year, going to Dallas and destroying them. But anyway, what do you got? Like, which team? Okay, which team would you target if you were doing a playoff challenge and you were just hoping for a team that was going to make a run?
If you're stacking players.
Yeah, and I don't think it's wrong to say like, I'd take the Chiefs and just
I'm stacking Lions if I have my choice of everybody.
Yes,
their offense is just on fire right now.
I know, but their defense, I know it was good last night, but their defense was, as I said on
Friday. Aaron Glenn was already a hot coaching commodity. He, probably doubled his value, if not tripled his value with what he did last night.
Well, that brings us to our next topic, and that would be the head coaching news. But before we get to the head coaching news, please take 30 seconds and vote for us on sportspodcastgroup.com. sportspodcastgroup.com. Click vote now. We're in the best fantasy betting and gaming category, and vote for fantasy football today. We'd really appreciate it. All right, news and notes. The Patriots fired Gerard Mayo. They'll have the 4th pick in the draft. The Cowboys have not decided on Mike McCarthy's fate yet. They'll have the 12th pick in the draft. The Giants are keeping Brian Dable and GM Joe Shane. They have the 3rd pick in the draft. The Jaguars fired Doug Peterson, but they kept their GM Trent Baalke. They have the 5th pick in the draft. I knew you were going to like that one. The Browns fired Ken Dorsey. They have the 2nd pick in the draft. He's their offensive coordinator, or was their offensive coordinator. The Dolphins are keeping their head coach and GM. They have the 13th pick in the draft, but Tyreek Hill wants out. The Bengals fired Lou Anarumo, their defensive coordinator. They will be picking 17th this season. And the Colts are doing what the Giants and the the Giants and the Dolphins, are doing. The Colts are keeping their head coach Shane Steichen and their GM Chris Ballard. They will have the 14th pick in the draft. Some injury news: Isaac Guerrero hurt his knee. They're thinking maybe an MCL sprain. And the big news we're looking at for this weekend: Jordan Love and Christian Watson leaving with injuries.
Love is most likely fine. He was warming up when Malik Willis got hurt to go back into the game. I think it was initially like it looked like maybe what happened to Brock Purdy, with his elbow, some nerve damage or nerve issues.
It was a funny bone. He got hit in the funny bone.
Right. And, came back in. There also is some news that just came over about Deshaun Watson, that he suffered a setback in his recovery.
Oh, wow. You think the Browns take a quarterback?
I don't know how you don't take a quarterback, because if you do, it makes it easy to justify sitting him. If you don't, then you rush him back on the field when he's ready, which may be a good thing if you want him to, look broken down and not play again. But like, if you're the Browns, I'm taking a quarterback and forcing his hand. Okay, sorry, you're sitting. Like, we made the mistake to pay you, but we're just going to have to ride this out, and this is our future.
I'd be very interested to see how many because this time of year, right? I mean, the mock drafts all have Shadur Sanders, Cam Ward as top picks. Will a third quarterback move up? It happens so frequently, right? Nobody saw how many 5 quarterbacks go in the top 12 last year or whatever it was. Will a third?
I remember being at the Senior Bowl, and there were NFL personnel people who could not believe that Penix or Bo Nix would be first-round picks. One of them told me that Penix was going to be a third-round pick. Wow. I was like, really? Really? He's like, yeah, not going to be good. I was like, all right. And then, wow.
There's some thought that Cam Ewers comes out. He might be that guy. I'd be surprised, but he could be. Huh?
Quinn Ewers,
excuse me. What was I thinking?
I think if he leaves, he's going to transfer. I was thinking he'd transfer to another school, but all right, yeah, maybe.
There's still the potential for that too. He might make more money transferring. I also wonder. I mean, what the Vikings, after what they saw last night, and Darnold struggling. I don't think it was all on Darnold, but like, did he lose his opportunity to get a huge deal? And do they want to pivot to JJ McCarthy, who may have more upside?
The answer to that question is going to come in the next few weeks.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if he leads them to a Super Bowl, then he's going to make all the money. But if
that was a huge playoff caliber game.
He looked like Sam Darnold circa 2018 to 2022. And if he does it again, really makes Minnesota going to have to make them think a little bit about how they advance this offseason.
But if Darnold has a strong playoff performance based on the season that he just had, then they sign him, and then JJ McCarthy maybe becomes a potential trade chip who could be the third quarterback that's a team is coveting.
Or the first quarterback.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a break, but I want to get your thoughts on the hirings and firings, not hirings, but the firings and the non-firings and what it means for fantasy. We're going to be right back. However, if you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, playoffs are here, okay? You still got time. Use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. You're going to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Just download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use the bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. All right, quick break. Back with some our reactions to the head coaching news and the top 12 for 2025 and our fantasy superlatives after this. Okay, so New England and Jacksonville have fired their head coaches. Browns fired their offensive coordinator. The Giants, the Dolphins, and the Colts are keeping things as is. Dave, what's your reaction from a fantasy perspective?
I'm curious to see how the Patriots move forward. I think we can all kind of pencil in Mike Vrabel as the next head coach. All of a sudden, talk stopped of him going to the Jets and other locations at the same time yesterday that Gerard Mayo got fired. So it would make sense if Kraft does a couple of sham interviews and then names Mike Vrabel the next head coach. Very curious to see what they do at offensive coordinator, because I don't think Alex Van Pelt set the world on fire in New England, but they've got building blocks, and the biggest building block they have is Drake May. They did the right thing by pulling him from the game. I'm real curious to see how they build around him. What receivers, plural, could they add to give him better weapons? Could he become just an absolute powerhouse for fantasy leagues? We could be talking about him in the same way that we talked about other rookies this year. Daniels, Caleb Williams, the type of quarterback that you're taking in round 9, round 10. He'll be your second guy, but has the upside to be a top 10 type of quarterback. I know Jacob Gibbs is very high on Drake May. That's the first reaction. Jacksonville already has that quarterback too. When it comes to Trevor Lawrence, they need somebody who's gonna like help rebuild the defense first and foremost. But they do have to find a way to make Trevor Lawrence play his best game.
Jamie, which player do you think has the most to gain from a new head coach or coordinator?
Of the firings that just happened, or the ones that are already available?
I would go overall.
Yeah, overall.
I mean, it's all the quarterbacks that are, the Trevor Lawrence, Drake May, Caleb Williams. I mean, whoever the Saints decide to settle on. Obviously, what the Jets decide to do, but the quarterbacks that are in place right now. It's May and the right guy there. If the Jaguars are hiring a guy to fix their defense, then they've already failed. They have to find somebody that's going to make Trevor Lawrence look like the guy that they paid. And then Caleb Williams. I mean, look, he clearly was drafted number 1 for a reason. We've talked about this. The arm talent is amazing. He holds the ball way too long. He's got to have better play designs and better opportunities to, showcase that arm talent. So those 3 guys right now have the most to gain, hopefully.
All right. We'll keep everyone updated on all the latest news.
How do you feel about the Giants? What they did?
I couldn't care less. Just don't care.
I don't understand why you say that.
Be a Giants fan. It doesn't matter who they hire and fire. They stink.
I'm
a Jets fan.
I think that there's an opportunity here, and it's the biggest, the hardest thing to solve is you get a quarterback in that franchise. And the tackles could still be good. The defensive line has a chance to be good, if not great.
Tackle. Yeah.
You got a great receiver, future star. You have a good enough run game.
Yeah. They got a lot of work to do. I just want to, when you root for a bad team and you see as the season goes on and the injuries pile up and they just have no depth. I don't think the Giants are alone in this, but they haven't, these are the bad teams. They haven't built out their roster. They haven't done well on the second and the third day of drafts. I look at the Niners, man, and like they draft these, a slot cornerback in round 5 or something, and he ends up being one of the Diamador Lenore. He ends up being one of the best slot corners in football. And they plug in all these offensive linemen, and they're still functioning. And obviously, they take the last pick in the draft on Brock Purdy. Is it just that they're scouting better? Is it just they're coaching them better? I don't know. But these bad teams, once the injuries hit, they have no depth. They have all these awful players on the field, and it doesn't matter if they have Malik Neighbors or whatever because they have too many bad players. The Giants have to really crush it.
Yeah, but that I think
on days 2 and 3.
Then it comes down to coaching, and if Daboll's not the right coach, then clearly that's the answer. But you look at what Sean McVay was able to do yesterday with backups, and they just make easy throws. It's Sean Payton getting Bo Nix. He fits what he wants him to do.
Yeah,
and easy decisions, and not putting his offensive line in situations like what the Bears do, where they're making those guys block for 7, 8, 9 seconds because Caleb's holding the ball because the coaching stinks.
So I think that Brian Daboll can be good for fantasy. I think there were open players, and the Giants quarterbacks just didn't see him. Like Daniel Jones is just bad at that, and he made Daboll look worse than he was. So I do think if they really want them to get Cam Ward, I am all in on Cam Ward from a fantasy perspective, from an NFL draft perspective. I'm not even being biased. Like I wasn't that convinced, but I think I'm just being silly. He's awesome. Sanders, I don't know enough about yet, but we'll figure all that out. But I would love any of those 3 teams get Cam Ward, Tennessee, Cleveland, or the Giants. I'm going to be pretty excited about it. But that's just me. I'm actually very curious to hear what all the now that the season's over and all these people are going to go really scout these quarterbacks. They know a lot more than I do. I think Cam Ward is going to jump Shedeur Sanders. The whole book on Sanders, like the 2 of them, you just read like, oh, Sanders is the safer play. Cam Ward has more upside. I think NFL teams will take that upside ahead of the quote unquote safety of Sanders.
It just takes one. I mean, if the Titans fall in love with one of these guys, they'll, make it somewhat obvious at some point.
Yeah, and maybe there's a surprise out there. We'll see. All right, let's get to our top 12 for 2025. Okay, how about how should we do this here? How about we'll go top 6. We'll do it in segments of 6. Dave, you can start. Give me your top 6.
If I were drafting today for 2025 and I had the first overall pick, I would take Jamar Chase. Coming off of a monster season on an offense that's crushing it. He was awesome all year. I don't think we really need to get into how awesome he was. He won the Triple Crown. That's enough said. Bijan Robinson would be number 2. Justin Jefferson, for now, is number 3. I want to see who the quarterback is before I think about moving him to number 2. So the top 3 for me, Chase, Bijan, Justin Jefferson. 3 after that, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Saquon Barkley.
Neighbors up there. Okay. Chase, Bijan, Jefferson, Puka Nacua, Malik Neighbors, Saquon Barkley. That's Dave. All right, Jamie, what's your top 6?
Bijan is 1. Chase is 2.
Wow.
Jefferson is 3. Barkley's 4. Puka is 5. And Jahmyr Gibbs is 6.
Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs, by the way, finished. Remember, I said unless Jahmyr Gibbs has a huge game this week, Saquon Barkley is going to be the number, right? Yeah, it would have been the first guy to finish for number 1 running back in PPR with fewer than like 40 catches. He had 32 since Sean Alexander in 2005. But Jahmyr Gibbs had a 40-plus point game, scored 4 touchdowns, and he is RB1. So Dave goes Chase, Bijan, Jefferson, Puka, Malik Neighbors, and you said Barkley, right?
Barkley is 6th.
Jamie
And
has
this is full PPR. I don't know if we made that clear.
Oh, yeah, PPR. Jamie has basically the same players, except he has Gibbs 6. Where do you have Neighbors, Jamie?
I have Neighbors at 10.
So Jamie goes Bijan, Chase, Jefferson, Barkley, Puka, Gibbs. My top 6 is Bijan, Chase, Jefferson. So we all have the same 3. Dave went Chase, Bijan, Jefferson. Jamie and I went Bijan, Chase, Jefferson. 4 is Nacua for me. 5 is Nico Collins. 6 is Saquon Barkley. So, Jamie, why did you go Bijan over Chase, as I did, by the way?
Just looking at the way that he finished the season, and I'm hoping for some offensive line upgrades. A lot of this is clearly, speculating. So, Dave mentioned Jefferson with the quarterback situation. We got to see who Neighbors' quarterback is. We got to see who the coach is for Brian Thomas, for example, who's a first-round pick, or should be at least. So there's a lot of things still at play here. But I think for Bijan, he showed he could work in the passing game. He showed he could be dominant on the ground. He's going to have another opportunity to be the featured guy. And I don't think their offense coordinator is changing in Atlanta or the head coach. So Zach Robinson should continue to, dial up plenty of plays for Bijan. I mean, he closed the season just on an absolute monstrous tear. I think it was like 9 of his last 11 with over 20 PPR points, and the right age of running backs, so a lot of people will probably say, why Bijan over Barkley? You got to worry a little bit about this is the time where Barkley should start to see a decline. Whereas I think just the opportunity for Bijan entering his prime could be amazing.
Bijan averaged 22.1 PPR points per game from week 6 on. He had 16 or more touches in every single one of those games. Remember earlier in the year when they weren't using him as much and everybody was freaking out? Too much Tyler Algier. They figured it out in October. And the results, Jamie just talked about it, like 9 of his last 11 games, he was on fire. 18 plus touches in all but 1 game leading up into the end of the year. So definitely a candidate. He's the number 1 pick in half and non-PPR. I think it's the full PPR factor. The fact that Jamar Chase is going to catch so many passes puts him ahead of Bijan. But it's close, and I don't hate you for putting Bijan at 1.
Yeah, for me, it was like, what's the most valuable player in fantasy? Is it still that ridiculously good running back, or does it even matter? Can it just be that ridiculously good wide receiver? It might just be the wide receiver at this point. I think either one is right. Either one's totally fine. Jefferson, we have 3rd. I think it's interesting that Bijan's our number 1 running back, and he had about 500 fewer rushing yards than both Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Like 600 fewer than Barkley, 500 fewer than Henry, something like that. It's just kind of eye-popping how great of a year that. Do you guys have Henry in your first round?
No, I do not.
I got a comment here about, definitely an eyebrow raiser about me having Nico Collins fifth. Do you have Nico in your first round?
Yes.
I do.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he finished in a slump, but he was wide receiver 9 per game in PPR, wide receiver 6 per game in non-PPR. And I think he's just going to be an absolute target hog, and he's amazing. All right. So that's our top 6. Dave, what's 7 through 12 for you?
Amon-Ra St. Brown is 7th. Jahmyr Gibbs is 8th. Nico is 9th. And Devon Achane is 10th. And I want to bet on his upside coming in, but I'm already nervous, and I was nervous about him last year, so maybe that's just par for the course for me. Kyron Williams is 11th, and then I've got Brian Thomas Jr. a nudge ahead of CeeDee Lamb at 12 and 13.
Interesting. Okay. So Dave's top 12 is Chase, Bijan Robinson, Jefferson, Puka, Neighbors, Barkley, St. Brown, Gibbs, Nico, Devon Achane, Kyron Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., CeeDee Lamb just off the list. Jamie, you go Bijan, Chase, Jefferson, Barkley, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs, and what's 7 through 12 for you?
So 7 is locked in at St. Brown, and then 8, 9, 10, and 11, I could see myself changing a billion times. So right now, 8 is CeeDee Lamb, 9 is Nico Collins, 10 is Malik Neighbors, 11 is Brian Thomas, and then 12 I do have Devon Achane also. But it's like, I want to see what the Cowboys do. I want to see what obviously the Texans do to fill out the receiving core, quarterback for Neighbors, coach for Thomas. So those 4 will probably stay in the first round. But I do want to see what the situations look like for all of them.
I think people are going to hate my my top 12. Well, just a couple of them. I know people are going to raise their eyebrows about.
I mean, you didn't put Marvin Harrison Jr. in there or anything.
No. I'll tell you. Once we get to number 8, number 7 for me is Jahmyr Gibbs, who ends up as RB2 per game. But I mean, it's so obvious the difference here, right? I mean, he was RB6 per game. He averaged 18.2 fantasy points per game with David Montgomery. He averaged about.
It's still amazing.
Yeah, it's great, but it's not like, he's not going to be the top 5 pick with that. But he averaged about 30 fantasy points per game without Montgomery. The last 3 games of the year averaged 32.6.
25.4, 26.3, and then 46 on Sunday night against Minnesota.
Yeah, but he was over 25 in all 3 of the playoff games.
And he scored 28.4 PPR.
That's when Montgomery got hurt, was week 15.
Right, week 15. So that was like half of Montgomery. But you know what it is. Like, Gibbs would be my number 1 pick if Montgomery were out. I'm sure he'd probably be that for consensus, but Montgomery not out. All right, number 8 is where.
But again, we've seen now 2 years of him missing time and what that could be.
Oh yeah,
that's that contingency upside. And in those 14 weeks with Montgomery, he averaged 18.2. Like, it's absolutely first round worthy.
Yeah. All right, number 8 though. You guys are gonna.
All right,
Christian McCaffrey.
Wow.
Listen, if you still believe in him. He's going to go in the back half of the first round. And it wouldn't surprise me if, he's healthy in camp and, doing everything that McCaffrey's capable of doing. Look, we thought Barkley was done as an elite fantasy option.
Yeah. We did?
Still did.
We were still taking Saquon Barkley as a top 15-ish pick.
Oh, with his move to Philadelphia. If he stayed with the Giants, he wasn't going to be a first-round pick last year. And Heath was, skeptical of it. Derrick Henry, we were skeptical of what he would be to this level. We weren't drafting him as a first round pick, and he was awesome as a second rounder. So I mean, I'm obviously usually the biggest ageist that we have, and he's at that point where you got to be worried. Look at Alvin Kamara. Everything was terrible for the Saints, and he averaged 18.9 PPR points with scoring 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns. Like, it was bad from a touchdown perspective. So these guys can still get it done when they catch the ball at that level, and Kamara was second in the NFL in running backs in catches with 68 and didn't play the last 3 games of the season.
Yeah,
Who was first?
Good.
Who was first? Achane.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All right. So I go McCaffrey 8, CeeDee Lamb 9, Amon-Ra St. Brown 10. He's interesting, though. I mean, only 142 targets in 17 games. And Goff through. Yeah, he does catch everything. We Goff through, 605. 539, so that's 66 fewer passes this year than he did the year before, but 54 more yards, 7 more touchdowns. Yeah, you did see a guy who had less target share with Williams emerging, with Laporta still being there. So I don't know, interesting, but he's so good. Malik Neighbors 11, Brian Thomas Jr. 12. This one's. Do you all have Neighbors ahead of Thomas? I think Jamie, you had him back to back also.
I do. Yeah.
I have Neighbors significantly higher because I think any quarterback that they bring in is an upgrade. And the fact that they're keeping Dable and Dable knows to just pepper this dude with targets. He'll be in his second year. I think he could. I think he's got the potential, especially in full PPR, to finish as the number one receiver. And I don't think it's crazy to suggest such a thing.
Right, but and I'm not disagreeing with that. But it's like Thomas was better than him this year with also bad quarterback play, and
No, he wasn't.
He was better than him in non-PPR. He was not in full PPR.
Yeah.
They were probably very close.
Point and a half per game better Neighbors was.
Oh, I guess with the way the season finished.
She saw the catches. I mean, look, here's the deal. Brian Thomas on a rate basis, yards per route run, targets per route run. Oh, not targets per route run. Yards per route run, yards per catch, yards per target, explosive play rate. He crushes Neighbors. Crushes. But Neighbors had 170 targets in 15 games. Thomas had 133 targets in 17 games. I'll also point out Thomas played 4 games with Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram, and he averaged 4 targets per game, 5 targets per game in those games.
How many of those games were early in the year?
Weeks 1, 6, 7, 8, I believe.
Yeah, so I would throw that out because I think he's established himself. Now, whoever goes to Jacksonville, and Jamie's right, it should be an offensive-minded guy to be the head coach there. They need more help on that side of the ball than defense. But whoever goes there is going to look at Brian Thomas as the number one receiver and hopefully use him accordingly. It would be malpractice if a guy goes to Jacksonville and says, you know what? Let's make sure that Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram get their 8 targets per game.
One of those two guys may not be there. So
That's a fair point too. Yeah.
There's the potential to move on from one of them, and maybe both. I don't know all the contract situations, and we don't need to get into that. But there's the chance of one of them moving on. But I don't even think it matters. I mean, the setup is there for both these guys. They were both amazing as rookies. They both have the chance to be absolute superstars. And hopefully, quarterback situation is solved for the Giants. Coaching situation is solved for Jacksonville. And we're talking about 2 slam dunk first-round picks that have the chance to be just amazing.
Yes.
Yep.
The thing that I would hope for with Neighbors is he continues to see crazy target volume. 170 is what he had this year, Adam?
In 15 games.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want that in a PPR league? And I think his efficiency could spike close to the levels of Brian Thomas this past year with an efficient quarterback. He played with crappy quarterbacks all year. Let's give him a good one for once, and those numbers will go up.
It's like, what's the answer there? Like, do they still find themselves taking a rookie, and we get the rookie struggles of what that could look like? Is it an also-ran guy like, I don't think it's possible, but, a Kirk Cousins goes to the Giants, and like
that would be bad.
That could be miserable,
Yeah.
So it really is going to depend on what they do. But the nice thing is, like you said, Dave, we saw what he looks like with Drew Lock. We saw what he looks like with Daniel Jones. We saw what he looks like, with Tommy DeVito, so there's only one way to go, most likely, which is up.
It sounds like I'm pricing in a quarterback upgrade for the Giants, and you guys are not doing that yet.
I mean, I just look at it this way. To me, there's 4 receivers that are right now untouchable. And that is Chase, Jefferson, Puka, and St. Brown.
Okay.
The conversation for me starts after that. So, like I said, after St. Brown for me at 7, I could see myself putting Neighbors 8. Moving ahead in Lamb, moving ahead in Nico.
Is that your top 4 receiver too, Dave?
Chase, Jefferson, Nakua, Neighbors.
Oh, right. And I had Nico 4. All right. Well, the Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., it reminds me a little bit of, not a little bit, actually reminds me a lot of Jalen Waddle versus Devontae Smith as rookies.
Not Evans and Odell?
Hopefully. Here's the comparison I was going to make. Waddle had a better year as a rookie in PPR. Had a lot of targets, caught a lot of passes. Smith was so much better on a per catch and per target basis. But then, it didn't matter because his second year, Waddle had his best year. He had a huge season. It just, I wouldn't really look so much at the rate stats and all that. Just look at the raw numbers. They are both incredible, and we'll see what happens going forward.
I also, if you're curious, I have several other of our top 12s if you want to hear them, not just ours.
That's all right. Okay. Get to the because it's published, right?
It will not be published either till later this week or maybe next week.
Jeez. Do you want to? Could he name off the most interesting top 12?
I haven't looked at them yet, so I'd have to look at them.
No,
Okay.
let's just go. We got to get to our
If
fantasy.
you want Heath, I can give you Heath.
It's okay. Heath, we can get Heath's next week. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today with the MVP candidates, just the candidates. We're going to let you all vote on it, but we'll be right back on FFT.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Okay, let's talk about the winners of the award show. So we do this every year. We come up with some nominees. We're going to come up with a final four. And I want audience participation here, people. Final four we'll come up with. Then we're going to post it on Facebook, and everyone can go vote in our Facebook group, which just search for Fantasy Football Today on Facebook. All right, we're going to start with the MVP, which, should probably have a little bit of ADP in it, but not necessarily. We got to come up with a final four for MVP. So who are some easy ones? I see Lamar. I think Lamar needs to be one of the options, right?
Sure.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm this will be up today. The all fantasy teams with the fantasy MVP, and this is totally chosen by me, so it'll be subjective. But I am struggling with the MVP, and I did post a Twitter poll because first I said who should be the MVP. Most of the answers I got were Chase or Barkley, and so I just did a Twitter poll on those two guys. So 1,800 votes so far. Barkley slightly ahead of Chase.
Wow, and not Lamar Jackson.
I didn't include Lamar Jackson because I think you make a case for 3 quarterbacks to be fantasy MVP. At some point, they were all amazing.
All right, he averaged 30 points per game.
You're taking it to week 18 though. Right?
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, 3 points better than Joe Burrow. All right, so okay, fine. Barkley and Chase then obviously are going to be on the list. So we need 2 more. And here's the thing: I think you could make a case. I think it could be Brock Bowers. He was a 100th overall in our ADP, and he finished as tight end 1 per game. That's unbelievable. I think
was tight end 1, right?
Oh,
they were very close.
He finished as tight end 1 overall. Kittle finished as tight end 1 per game. I think Brian Thomas Jr. has a great case.
Yes,
because he finished strong.
Finished as a top 12 receiver per game in PPR, and he was drafted after round 10 on average.
I think I would not vote for Barkley because his last 5 games were not exceptional. 19.7, 14.4, 9.4, 27 points in week 16, 18.9. That's great, but it didn't win me my league. You won me your league. You won your league before.
I mean, you got to look at the body of work though for these guys. Like this is the thing that I struggle with in putting these teams together. It's like, how do you keep off Alvin Kamara, for example, who did not play in the fantasy playoffs, but was such great value and got you there?
No, I agree. You got to look at the body of work. I just think like if I'm picking between these finalists, that's going to be kind of a tiebreaker for me. But all right, what are you guys thinking here? What's on your mind?
Okay, so when it comes to quarterback candidates to be on this list, Lamar was like 3 points per game, 6-point passing touchdown leagues better than any other quarterback. And he was drafted like close to 30th overall on draft day in 1 QB leagues. So that's pretty good value. If you give up those 3 points, in the case of Baker Mayfield, 3.7 points per game, Baker, there were leagues that we were in where Baker wasn't even drafted. So maybe he's like the waiver wire pickup of the year.
That's the easiest one.
Right. So he might be. So maybe we don't use him as an MVP candidate, but he was somebody that obviously was awesome. I look at the running backs who were possible MVP candidates, Saquon, Gibbs, like they make sense. But Derrick Henry was taken after those guys, and he averaged
18 points per game.
Yeah, I've got him at 19.8 in PPR. So that's a little bit behind Barkley and Gibbs and Bijan, but not by much. And you were getting him, let's see, what was his average draft position last year? I'm looking.
2 points behind Barkley.
Right. So maybe Barkley was probably a little bit better since he was drafted not that much farther ahead than Derrick Henry. Yeah, Derrick Henry was 11th. Saquon Barkley was 5th. So if you're going to make the case for Henry to be MVP, you might as well go all the way to Saquon.
Well, I mean,
Even though he's
we have
ADP.
this discussion every year. Is it the guy that lived up to his value, or is it the guy that surprised us?
It's the best value on draft day who finished best at his position.
Well,
And
isn't
that's
it-
why I think Brian Thomas Jr. is kind of out of the
No, you don't have to. Why do you have to finish? Why do you have to finish best at your position?
one of the best at your position.
Yeah, but Thomas, I mean, the way he finished, he was such a league winner.
He was, but
I
he
would-
struggled at the beginning of the year, and we just got done talking about how he got off to a little bit of a slow start. Imagine what Neighbors would have been. Remember this when it comes to Blink Neighbors too. Imagine what he would have been if he hadn't have struggled with the concussion issue in the middle of the season.
Well, he's not going to win. He's not going to be on this list, but
I think he should absolutely be on the MVP list.
he should be a final
7th
four
per
guy.
game among wide receivers, and he was drafted 70th overall.
Yeah, but Brian Thomas Jr. like barely was worse than him and was drafted, 30 something picks later and finished much stronger than Neighbors
Not quite a point and a half per game behind Neighbors.
in full.
So that's probably worth the drop off from 70th overall to whatever it was 130th overall for Brian Thomas Jr. So, okay, maybe there is a better case for BTJ over Malik Neighbors. I guess the question would be, Jamar Chase was 5 PPR points per game better than Neighbors was.
Yeah, it's definitely Chase. And he didn't miss any games. To me, it's Chase. All right, so look, here's my final four. I'll just try to make this simple. Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Brock Bowers. And I don't mean it to have one of each position. It's just a coincidence. I don't think it has to be that way. But those are, to me, the four
Bowers
candidates.
was awesome. I don't think he should be the MVP.
I don't know how Gibbs, the way he finished and played, is not in the conversation too.
Absolutely is in the conversation. You want to
Yeah,
put? You want to?
I would take Gibbs over Bowers.
I would take Gibbs over Bowers as well. Gibbs on ADP was 17.33. So top 20 pick, finished top 2 at his position. Not too far behind Saquon.
Do you guys want to put Bowers in over the other three?
He was less than a point per game.
No, I wouldn't put Bowers in.
Saquon. I don't know if maybe we should be putting Gibbs ahead of Saquon.
No.
I don't
I'm serious.
Look, here's the reason why I wouldn't, Dave. Because it's tough. Like, you got to look at full season stuff. But in the first 17 weeks of the season, Barkley was 32 points better than Jahmyr Gibbs. Like week 18, week 18 really pushed that up, and most people weren't playing. All right, so I'm fine with, if you guys are fine with Jackson, Barkley, Chase, Gibbs, I'm fine with that.
Just to have it on record, Saquon Barkley, first 17 weeks of the season, 22.2 PPR points per game. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19.8. So, yes, those 3 points are worth it to go from 17th overall to 5th overall.
All right, who are the biggest busts, the bust candidates?
Oh, man. You can start with Tyreek Hill, who was drafted as like a top 6 pick in PPR.
The two worst first round picks, and again, I take out injury in this. So the two worst first round picks. Well, I guess I don't know where Marvin Harrison's ADP was, but
I will tell you.
Breece Hall and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 34 per game, and Travis Etienne at running back 42 per game.
Breece Hall's ADP was 3.5. Tyreek Hill's ADP was 5.8. Marvin Harrison's ADP 27.58.
So just so you know, I'm doing the all fantasy teams, all bust team, all rookie team. The all bust team, if you want the list, I give it to you. If you want to come up with our list, and I give it to you afterwards. But Breece Hall's on the list of the guys we just named. Travis Etienne's on the list. Tyreek Hill's on the list. Marvin Harrison Jr. on the list.
You got to put Patrick Mahomes on the list.
I do not have Mahomes on the list because he was not the worst quarterback of the top 5 who were drafted.
Yeah, but he was drafted way. You're Stroud.
The worst top 5 quarterback drafted based on ADP.
Stroud?
Yes.
Yeah, but he was also drafted 25 picks behind.
I don't care. He was
Mahomes.
unstartable. Mahomes, at least you got to a point at the end of the season you're starting.
So I think Tyreek Hill, Travis Etienne, and Marvin Harrison Jr. are pretty easy calls, in my opinion. Was Breece Hall that big of a bust?
Yes.
He was RB 17 per game. Okay, then he should be on the list. 100%.
Easy.
All right. So we'll go Tyreek
Hill on the list, but he shouldn't win.
All right. Tyreek Hill, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Marvin Harrison Jr. I like that.
Yeah, and we're really not going to consider Christian McCaffrey.
No, you can make your case, but I don't. I wanted to do non-injury busts.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
It's fine, but we knew about the injury going into the draft season, and every indication was he's going to be fine. He's going to play week 1, even practice before week 1. Then he was inactive for week 1. I don't mean to bring up bad memories for people that had the first overall pick until Christian McCaffrey, but he missed week 1 and then he was put on IR. He was gone for 9 more weeks, came back, didn't score a touchdown, had flashes of his old self, then got hurt again on a non-contact injury and was out for the year. That's a pain in the ass for a 101 pick. And I know that we want to take injury out of it, but that was painful to deal with and really hard for fantasy managers to come back from. And I kind of feel like we should make an exception to the whole, well, you can't blame injuries for this, when we thought that he was over the injury issue. It's not like he was fine, played for 4 weeks, and then he tore his ACL or something like that. Like we kind of got bamboozled with Christian McCaffrey. Can you tell that I had Christian McCaffrey on some of my teams? Can you sense that a little bit?
Yeah, no, hold on. I'm looking up my response here. Oh man, I have such a funny response. I just can't find it. I was going to do the whole judge from My Cousin Vinny. That was a well thought, lucid, like blah, 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 argument. Overruled. But I couldn't find the script. Sorry about that. No, it makes sense. I don't know. I don't think people are going to, if we're going to say non-injury bust, I don't think people are going to vote for Christian McCaffrey because people are going to consider him an injury bust. But good point, Dave. Okay, best waiver wire pickup. Baker Mayfield, at least we're going to put him on the list. Who else, Jamie? Who else should we be looking at?
I mean, I think the 2 quarterbacks that we mentioned, and I went back and looked at the waiver wire column from weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5, just so you know who gave you the most over the course of the season. Now, there were some guys that we recommended in there that didn't show up until later in the year, like Jalen McMillan was mentioned early. Jonnu Smith was mentioned early. They didn't really show up again toward the end of the season, but they were league winners, if you started them in the playoffs, certainly. McMillan's maybe a little bit tougher case to make for, but, Jonnu became a top 5 tight end. So I think he belongs on the list. But I think the 2 quarterbacks, because they were, again, difference makers. Baker Mayfield was easy the best one, but Sam Darnold, I mean, look the way he played and performed. So for me, the 4 would be Baker, Darnold, Bucky Irving, and Jonnu Smith.
Bless you.
Baker, Darnold, Bucky Irving, Jonnu Smith. I mean, I got no issues with that. I can't really think of anybody out there in the chat. Chase Brown was not a waiver wire pickup. No,
I mean, he might have been in your 6-team league. I don't think we can make a strong enough case for receivers like Thielen and Jerry Jeudy, who evolved into must-start receivers in the second half, maybe like the last third of the year.
Judy's actually
they might not have even been on the waiver wire to begin with. Jeudy might have just been languishing on benches, Thielen in an IR spot.
There's some. And this is why I looked early in the season. There's some guys who were dropped after being drafted.
Right, like Bucky.
So Judy falls in that category. He was drafted and then dropped.
Keenan Allen was someone that I was going to.
Again, drafted and dropped.
That's fine. I'm fine with that.
I don't think that for me, if we're going receivers, we told people to pick up Darnell Mooney in week 2. And you started him for a good portion of the season. So if we're going to look at those type of players, I would vote Darnell Mooney over.
Why wouldn't we vote? Why wouldn't we select?
We can.
He was on the waiver wire?
He was week 2. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that was the big debate Dave and I had of Darnell Mooney versus Quentin Johnston, because they both had big week 2s.
Oh, so he was a week 3 waiver wire?
Mooney's ADP was 164th, so definitely was not drafted in every single league. Neither was Zach Ertz, but I don't think he makes this conversation. I mentioned Thielen already. Right, I don't know if I've got anybody else that could be on this list.
I gave you a whole list of guys. Like Hunter Henry was somebody that came out of nowhere. Tucker Kraft, when we said to pick him up, was 6% rostered and became basically a must-start tight end. Not a superstar, but not again, not someone to overlook. It just depends on what the qualifications that we're looking for here. Because again, Bucky Irving was like right around 60% rostered when we said to pick him up. So waiver wire guy, but still drafted in some leagues. To me,
where did Jacoby Myers show up on your list? Because his ADP was right in line with Baker Mayfield's.
Jacoby Myers was also again, I think somebody that was drafted and dropped after a slow start, and became great. I just look at it as, who did we say early in the season that helped you?
Yep.
And I think it's the 2 quarterbacks, because they became top 10 quarterbacks. I think it's Bucky Irving with the way that he finished the season. And then I would put Jonnu there just because he became an absolute stud.
Really hard to argue with Jonnu. 13.1 PPR points per game. So that was barely decimal points behind Njoku, who was at 4, and just a couple of points per game behind Kittle, McBride, Bowers, who were all over 15.
I like it. Okay, so that's our final 4. Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Sam Darnold, Jonnu Smith. So who's the rookie of the year? I mean, this is Bowers, right?
It's either him or Jaden Daniels.
Oh my gosh.
Or Thomas or Neighbors.
Or Bucky. Probably not Bucky Irving, but man, this is a good class. All right, I'm going to let the people. Jaden Daniels, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. Anyone we're missing?
Of the rookies? I mean, I don't think so. I think those are the best 4.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough.
Daniels' ADP was 94th overall. You could laugh at yourself with some of the quarterbacks that were taken ahead of Jaden Daniels, including CJ Stroud, who was taken as a top 50 pick. Bowers was after that. Bowers was 110th overall. So a little bit better value at the 1Z position.
Well, Thomas and Irving were the best values.
Sure, because they went after Bowers.
Does Bucky Irving deserve to be on here ahead of?
I don't know if he deserves to be on here ahead of.
No,
he didn't finish as a top 12 running back. He had a great finish to the year.
The 2 receivers
League winner for
tight end,
sure. But
quarterback.
so was Brian Thomas Jr. and his explosive play came much sooner than Bucky's.
The all rookie team is the easiest story I'll ever have to write. It's Jaden Daniels at quarterback. It's Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy at running back. It's Neighbors. Yeah. It's Neighbors, McConkey, and Thomas at receiver. Bowers at tight end. I gave Xavier Worthy the flex spot, and it's really sad that Marvin Harrison doesn't make the list.
I just want to look up one thing here because I'm going to make a case for Bucky Irving over Malik Neighbors. So just hold on one second.
All right. Well, hold on.
Well,
why don't
no, I'm almost done. All right, I'm going to look from week 7, which is when Neighbors got back from his concussion, and I think Andrew Thomas was out at that point. Week 7 through 17, Malik Neighbors averaged 16.5 fantasy points per game. Bucky Irving averaged 16.8 fantasy points per game. I bet if I made it, let's check week 12 through 17. Irving averaged, Neighbors averaged 19.5. That's going to be tough to beat. 19.5. Irving averaged 18.7. He was RB4 per game. I just picked week 12 randomly.
That just makes me like Brian Thomas Jr. even more.
How about we just bend our rules and do 5 candidates?
No. Gotta make it hard on us. Can't do that.
Well, who's going to vote for Neighbors if Brian Thomas Jr. is in the running?
A lot of people still.
I mean, he finished higher. He finished with more PPR points per game. Neighbors did. The better value on draft day was Brian Thomas Jr.
If I had to guess the voting, it's going to go Thomas, Bowers, Neighbors, Daniels.
Yeah, but Adam's the one who gets to guess what the poll results are.
So, oh man, I am really torn between Bucky Irving and Malik Neighbors here.
It's Neighbors. Come on.
Fine. Daniels, Bowers, Thomas Jr., Neighbors. Comeback player of the year.
I gave you 2 candidates. I can't think of a third.
Who'd you say?
Who did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Joe Burrow and J.K. Dobbins. I don't know who else is worthy of it.
Aaron Rodgers?
He wasn't good, though.
Jonnu doesn't make this list?
What did he come back from?
What did he come back from?
Sucking. A career of it?
Oh, Barkley?
What did he come back from?
Mediocrity? The Giants? Derrick Henry didn't have a very good year last year, right?
Yeah, that's not a bad. He should make the list.
Let's see, Derrick Henry was RB10 overall last year, but on a per game basis,
he was not great.
RB18.
Yeah, and even worse in full PPR.
We'll put him on the list. All right, Burrow, Dobbins, Derrick Henry. How about T. Higgins?
Suggesting Darnold, which is fine too.
T. Higgins is like RB5 or wide receiver 5.
So I looked at him. I was surprised he played 12 games last year because at first I was like, oh, he only had 76 targets. He must have only played like 6 games. He played 12 games. I was going to put T. Higgins on the list, so I think that qualifies.
Chuba?
No, that's not a comeback.
He was good at the end of last year.
All right. Whatever you guys decide is fine. I got to run.
Okay. All right. T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, J.K. Dobbins, Derrick Henry, T.
Zach
Higgins. Zach Ertz, not bad. I mean, even George Kittle, but no, I don't think anyone's going to buy that argument. Kelsey? No.
No. What did he come back from?
No, nothing.
I think it's Burrow, Dobbins.
Definitely Henry. I'm definitely going Henry.
No, I don't think Henry at all.
Why? He was RB18.
But again, like that's still good.
Not really. Like he got
No.
RB18 per game. He looked like completely washed up.
I'm gonna say it's Burrow, Dobbins. I'm gonna trust the chat here and go Darnold, and then I'm gonna say Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz over Derrick Henry?
Zach Ertz was out of the league last year.
Yeah, he was tight end 11 per game. I don't know. We have 1 week left of voting, by the way, so please vote. I don't know, Jamie. I think I'm gonna have to pull rank here and overrule you.
Derrick Henry is terrible.
Schaefer, Henry or Ertz?
Ertz.
What the hell? That's ridiculous.
He was on like all of my fantasy teams because Dave said to draft him late. And what did he do last year? He was injured all last year. Like Derrick Henry played every game.
He has to be released.
Derrick Henry, like he looked like his career was over. He's 32, right?
Zach Ertz's career was over.
Yeah, but Zach Ertz wasn't that good. Derrick Henry was one of the best.
Zach Ertz was a league winner. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Ertz is tight end 11
Look at the way he finished the season.
per game.
Tight end 11 is actually pretty good for the mediocrity at the position.
Yeah, he was fine, but like he wasn't. Look at the other guys we're talking about here.
First of all, Burrow's coming back from injury. So take what I'm about to say about him out of the equation. We thought J.K. Dobbins was completely done. He's obvious. We thought that Sam Darnold would never be a quarterback again. Starter, must start guy.
Oh no, I'm not disputing those. That's good.
And Zach Ertz was out of the NFL. And you want to take Derrick Henry, who went to the Ravens, and wow, look, big surprise. He had a good comeback.
Because he had such a better year. Like you can't just great. It came back. So what? He was good. He wasn't anything special. Like Derrick Henry rushed for 1,900 yards.
I don't know.
Yeah, because he wasn't done. He didn't come back from anything. He's
He
still good.
He came back from a really bad year.
I mean, I won a league with him last year, so I don't think it was that bad of a year.
Yeah, it was fine, but
it wasn't a Derrick Henry year, but he
Derrick Henry hired you to work for him?
He averaged 6.4 more non-PPR fantasy points per game, and in full PPR, he averaged.
Derrick Henry's not a comeback player of the year. Adam, come on.
Oh, I disagree. What people are asking? What did he come back? I just told you he came back from a terrible season. Does everybody have to come back from an injury? He came back from I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said terrible. He came back from a bad year. He looked like an aging running back, kicked out of town. We don't want you anymore on Tennessee. See if you can revive your career. Bam, 1,900 rushing yards.
But he didn't have to revive his career. He still had over 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah, he had a fine
year. Zach, if you're saying revive his career, Zach Ertz revived his career.
But he didn't have that good of a year. Like if Zach Ertz had been a top 5 tight end, then sure, he's tight end 10.
People were laughing at Dave for saying to draft this guy, and he finished top 11 tight end. What's up?
Start a list of Adam's bad takes of 2025 and put this on the list.
Yeah, we're 6 days in.
Yeah.
All right, fine, Zach Ertz. All right, we'll talk to y'all. I actually forgot, Thomas. Are we Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday.
We'll talk to you Wednesday on Fantasy Football Today. See ya.